Hey everyone, Liz Klimek here, Planetarium Manager at the South Carolina State Museum. Well, I know it's probably hard to believe, but summer is finally winding down to a close. And I know that summer didn't go anything like anyone originally expected it to back when the year started, but I sincerely hope that whatever your situation is, that there were some good moments in there and that hopefully you were able to take out some time for yourselves and maybe even take some time out to enjoy the summer stars. Well, the autumnal equinox is not that far away. It's coming up on the 22nd, and that is going to be the official start of fall, at least astronomically speaking. But that doesn't mean the summer sky is going to instantly disappear. Those summer star patterns will be with us for a while longer as we transition into the next season, so you still have a few weeks to go out and enjoy them, as well as two special objects that have been with us throughout the summer, both traveling together through the evening skies and which will continue to do so going on through the end of the year. To see which objects I'm referring to, let's go take a look at what the sky will look like this upcoming weekend, September 12th at 9 p.m. We'll go ahead and look south here as we normally do from right here in Columbia, South Carolina. And if you look directly in front of us here, you will see two bright points of light that at first look like stars. But if you've been watching our previous sky tours, you'll know that these are not stars at all, but are actually two planets in our solar system. The brightest of which will be Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, and this one over here will be Saturn. Now these two have been with us for quite a few months now, so I thought we would take this opportunity to spend some extra time just learning a little more about them, Jupiter in particular. Now, Jupiter and Saturn are both very similar. They're both gas giants, which basically means there's no solid surface to stand on. They're both made of mostly hydrogen and helium, and they have very turbulent atmospheres with dramatic, majestic-looking storms. But the features on Jupiter show up better than they do on Saturn. So we'll zoom up on Jupiter here, show you what it kind of looks like if you were to look at it in a telescope. So it's got some very striking features, most notably these bands of clouds here that look like racing stripes or tiger stripes going across the face of the planet. And if you were to look at those clouds up close, you would see that there's swirls and eddies. Sometimes you can see some oval-shaped features, the most famous of which is the Great Red Spot, which is a giant hurricane-like storm that's been raging for a few hundred years now. And it's really neat that we're able to see some of these features from so far away all the way here back on Earth. But if you think this view is nice, then imagine what Jupiter looks like up close. And I can give you a sense of what it might look like if I simulate what it's like to be in orbit around Jupiter. But you can actually see real pictures of what Jupiter looks like up close if you check out some of the many images taken by various ground-based telescopes, space-based telescopes like the Hubble Space Telescope, and then there are the images taken by various spacecraft who have visited Jupiter. And I don't know if you know, but there's actually a spacecraft in orbit around Jupiter right now. It's called Juno. Now, the Juno mission doesn't get much press, even though it's been there for a little more than 4 years now, which bums me out a lot because the images that Juno has been returning are amongst the most jaw-droppingly, achingly beautiful images I've ever seen of another planet. There are so many just beautiful features, storms smashed up against each other, just all over the planet. And to give you a sense of what some of these images look like, I'll show you one here. This is taken by the Juno spacecraft, and as you can see, it looks like someone just took some gorgeous paint and swirled it all together to make a spectacular work of art. Here is another image. It's one of my favorites. This is an infrared image of the south pole of Jupiter. And you can see all of these storms that are basically thousands of miles across, all packed together at the poles there, just right next to each other, like a pan of cinnamon buns. Now, one of our summer campers this past summer said that this kind of looked like a pepperoni pizza, and I can see that, but I don't know. I usually just head straight for dessert. But there are so many of these images on various NASA pages and JPL pages and whatnot. So definitely check out the NASA Juno mission images because, wow. Now, everything about Jupiter has to be big, dramatic, and epic. And the number of natural satellites is no exception. So we're looking at Jupiter here, and it's actually surrounded by dozens of moons that orbit it. There are so many moons that I usually just describe them as dozens. I think the last count was up to 79. The more we look, the more we keep finding. And actually, we're getting to the point where we're going to have to decide what we're going to consider to be a moon and what we're going to consider to be just a small rock or some space debris. But you can see 4 of those 79 plus moons in a telescope. They'll look like bright points of light on either side of Jupiter. Sometimes you won't see all 4 because sometimes Jupiter will be in the way. These moons will be on the other side of Jupiter. But these are called the Galileo moons because Galileo first saw them in one of his telescopes. And they're basically the brighter of the moons. And they do have names. They're called Io, Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede. Now, someone once joked to me that because of all of these moons, Jupiter must have one serious werewolf problem. So just keep that in mind if you ever lament the fact that we only have the one moon. Now, something Jupiter is not very dramatic about at all is its ring system. And a lot of people are surprised to learn that Jupiter has a ring system. We didn't even know the rings were there until the Voyager 1 spacecraft flew by in 1979. They're so dim and dark, they're just made of really fine dust particles, but they're just so hard to see that you basically can't see them unless they're backlit by the sun, and that's not a view that we have from here on Earth, unfortunately. But fortunately, we have sent some spacecraft to Jupiter, lots of spacecraft, and so that's how we learn about some of these amazing things. Now, I'll go back to our night sky view here, zoom out, and I've pretty much used up most of our time talking about Jupiter, but I will briefly zoom up on Saturn here because I know that it does tend to be a favorite because of its beautiful rings. The rings do steal the show. They are the biggest and the brightest ring system around any planet in our solar system, so it kind of makes up for the fact that the storms and the wild weather on Saturn don't show up as well as they do on Jupiter. Saturn also has dozens of moons. Those gas giants just have a ton. So we'll have to come back to Saturn in a future episode and talk about it some more. Now, you should be able to find these unmistakably in the night sky, but if you need some landmarks, Jupiter and Saturn here are right next to a pattern of stars that kind of looks like a teapot. This is going to be Sagittarius the Archer. And these are the brighter stars here that kind of form a kettle-looking shape. So they just happen to be right behind that centaur there. They also happen to be right below something called the summer triangle, which we have talked about in some past episodes. I'll zoom out here so you can see that a little bit better. Right above them will be 3 very bright stars high overhead. So I hope this gives you some things to look forward to viewing over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully this special Jovian edition of our virtual sky tour gives you more of an appreciation of what you're actually seeing when you gaze at Jupiter and when you gaze at Saturn. So, thank you once again for joining me. Have a wonderful last few weeks of summer here and a good start to the fall. If you are interested in learning more astronomy, be sure to check out the Planetarium show schedule at scmuseum.org. The Planetarium is open and we have a variety of shows where we take you to and through the stars. Take care of yourselves and each other. Don't forget to like and subscribe below, and I hope to see you again in a future episode.